Welcome back to the shop, everyone. I hope you're doing well. What we're doing today is we are going to start building a TV tray dinner table. You know, little folding trays. They're little folding tables that you have when you're sitting in your living room watching TV. My wife has one that she uses, and I think it's hideous looking, so I'm going to try to build one that looks marginally better, I hope. What we got in front of you is I've rough cut all the material down to size. You can see I got glue up there that I got to scrape off. So these are the leaves underneath here. These are made out of maple. These are ash, so I'm just using some of the wood that I have left over from other projects. And so what I'm going to do next is cut these all down to size. I'm going to cut the supports down to size. These are going to be the legs. I'm going to cut those down to size. We'll start putting everything together, do some dry fitting, figure out how to make this thing hinge. I've looked at a few items online, so I have some idea of where I'm going to go with this. It's a little bit of trial and error, but we'll see how that goes. Incidentally, I am changing the formatting a little bit on the channel, so some of the stuff I've been doing lately, I've just been recording me building it, just adding music to it as something to watch. This one's going to be a little bit more instructional on how to build this thing, how to put it together, some of the things that I run into. So let me know either way if you like more of these how-to kind of instruction-based videos, or you prefer the videos where you just watch me make something and listen to nice music as we do it. So let's get started. So a moment ago you saw me do some sanding there, and that is because I let the glue sit too long. I didn't wipe it off after clamps came off. So I didn't want to leave the sharp edges up there, because if you just hit that with the cabinet scraper, a lot of times what that'll do is it'll just tear a chunk of the wood out, and I don't want to do that. So now that I've kind of knocked it down to just a glued surface, I'm just going to take the rest of it off with the cabinet scraper, and then what I'm going to do is go over to the jointer, make sure that it's nice and flat, run it through the jointer and planer, and go from there. So here is the flattened top now that it's all glued up. So this originally were 6-inch boards, all one long board. So I cut it into these 22-inch pieces. Did a rough, plane flat, and got it roughly to size. Left a little oversized because I knew I was going to plane off the glue and everything. I glued those up. Made these two leaves. These are 11 inches right now. So what we're going to do is the finished top is going to be 10.5 on each leaf, and it's going to be 21.5 across, I believe. I might change that depending on how it looks. Quite like the way that it looks right here. Because it's all one board, we do get a bit of a grain match, and what's going to happen is we're going to use either dowels, or I might use dominoes. We'll see how things go there. So that these two leaves are going to unhook from each other, so one side will be glued in with the 2 dowel pins or 3 dowel pins, and then I'll have the corresponding holes on the other side, so when the table comes together, it'll come together like that. I quite like the way the grain looks here, so I'm going to leave it in this orientation, and that's just so I know what sides are going together and which sides are up, so as I move things around I don't have to think about it, I can just look for the pencil marks. All right, so what we're doing right now is these are the supports that go underneath the little table leaves. I'm going to round the corners off. These are going to be the outside corners. So what I did to figure out my radius here is I just measured the tip of my compasses at 7/8 of an inch. So if we do this, you can see I already got a hole there. And that gives me my corners. You don't have to do it this way. You could easily just freehand this, but I wanted them all symmetrical. You could also use something like a French curve and do it that way, but this is the way I decided to do it. The reason I went for the center points anyway is because I have to drill holes through these, so this all works out. So finding the center, doing the 7/8, giving me my center for drilling my hole, and then the rounders all kind of works together. So I didn't quite think through my drilling. What I should have done is I should have drilled a little tiny pilot hole all the way through, so it went straight through, and then I had something to guide my next drill bit in. So what I'm doing is I'm recessing these screws in. So this is going to be the bottom. I'm recessing them in so that obviously they reach through and into the tabletop. I'm going to glue and screw these onto the top once I'm done. But to get these 1.5 screws through this 1 3/4, obviously I have to drill through a ways. So I countersunk everything, and I have to finish that off. So I can't really do it on the drill press because I can't see where my center is. But if I feed down this, I can then see the center, and roughly these don't have to be bang on as in angles. So if they're off the angle a little bit, it's not going to ruin anything. And so forth and so on. So just a quick dry fit to make sure everything's coming along. We got all the holes drilled. We've got the doweling in here as the hinge. It's a little bit too long, but that's fine. I'll cut that off. And then what we have to do is dowel the top and the background here. It needs 2 connector pins in between the leaves there, so we'll do that next. Cut this back, and then after that we have to figure out where our angle is going to be for the table and how these legs go together, and we'll have to find out where the center point is. So I think I'll probably clamp everything together, put it on top of the table, then figure out where the legs, because you want the legs to reside within the tabletop. So we'll try that and see how things go. All right, going to put the dowel pins in using a doweling jig, obviously. So I have not measured anything because I'm going to reference the edge of the board with the edge of the jig. That's going to be pretty uniform all the way across. I'm going to reference off the underside. So this is my good face, this is my underside. I'm going to reference off the same face for all 4 holes, and we're going to start drilling. Okay, moment of truth. I've got everything in here temporarily. I got some screws holding it together, but nothing's glued, and I don't have the cross pieces across here, so it's a little floppy. So let's see. Okay, that came apart. Trying to keep the joints together. Ah, that's pretty good. And that's your handle to grab hold of it. And I see I have some graphite that got underneath my maple top, and now it's covered in black smudge. So yeah, that works. The pivot point works. I got to glue everything up and do a whole bunch of sanding now because I got pencil graphite all over everything. And this doesn't look very smooth because everything's wobbly. But once I have the cross pieces on, that should work nicely. Good news. Okay, all the rounding over and sanding is done. The next thing that I've done there is I reassembled everything back together just to double check, and then I've marked all my glue points with the green tape. There's actually a little G on each of them. That's so that as I put this thing together, I know which side I'm gluing of which so that it still will pivot. So each of these little green markers is where I'm going to glue. So I'm going to break it all down again, glue the pieces back in there, hook everything up, let that dry, and then we'll screw that down to the top and finish. All right, glue up went well, everything worked. My little glue or little green paint strips worked pretty well. What we've got here is the two uprights that are going to go across the bottoms of the legs. I just measured these out to 4 inches off the ground. Put a mark them here. I'm going to take these over to the drill press, drill those out, and use screws to attach them. I use screws throughout the whole part of this for the attachment to the top and everything, mostly because I had to take it apart so many times. And even at this point, once I have these all dialed in, I'll have to take the whole thing apart again to do the finishing on it. So screws for me were just a better choice. Now that I've done this once, if I made another one, I would probably opt in for through doweling or something like that because I didn't have to take it apart so many times. But for the first build, definitely screws were the way to go. On to finishing. I decided to go with a water-based top coat, so it's a polymer-based one rather than what I usually use as hard wax oils, just because I think this thing is going to see more abuse, just being folded and unfolded and put in corners and stuff when not in use. So I'm going to go with poly on top of it, water-based. So I've already put one coat on, so I sanded up to 240 grit. Did a grain pop, so I wiped everything down with water, resanded, just scuffed it lightly with 320, and now I've done the first coat of the finish on there, and I'm going to hit that again just to knock down any of the nubbins with some 400 grit there by hand. And then we'll put another coat of the finish on and go from there. So here is the finished unit in the room that it's going to be in. Like I said, it's a folding table. It's pretty sturdy. I probably wouldn't sit on it, but it is strong. And to get it apart, just folds apart like so. And then you have the carrying handle. It's a little stiff right now, and obviously a little noisy. And there's the unit. That's the top. As always, if you like this kind of content and you want to see more of it, please subscribe to the channel and let me know what you think of the video.